Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to the Healing Elevates Relationships podcast. I'm your host, Bernadette Jackson, CEO and Lead Strategist at H.E.R Consulting Group and the creator of Her Way Relationship Intensive course. This podcast was created as a response to my desire to redefine how the world views women with daddy issues. I release a new episode every week, so expect to hear me and my guests discussing topics, sharing stories, and gaining insights from the perspective of a fatherless daughter and the people who love and support us. If this is your first time here, here's what I want you to know. You deserve amazing relationships, and nothing you've done or experienced disqualifies you from that. But here's the thing. Amazing relationships with others happen after you cultivate an amazing relationship with yourself. And how do you do that? Self-discovery, healing, and accessing your authenticity. Let's dive in. Hey, y'all. So we are back with another episode, and today we have Sydney and Lindsay Ray Perry, who are with me today. They are going to be interviewing with me. I am doing the couples series for Couples Appreciation Month, and I am so excited that they're here. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about who we have with us, and then we're going to jump straight in. So when I asked Lindsay to tell me a little bit about her and her husband, this is what she said. It was dope at first sight. Already, I'm like, okay, I like this. I like this. That is how high school sweethearts Sydney and Lindsay Perry described the moment that they first officially met. The married couple has been together for 18 years and have a 3-year-old son, Sonny. The couple believes that a Christ-centered marriage is a foundation for sharing a lasting and loving relationship. They stay true to their core values: God first, honesty, patience, freedom, and growth. Above all, they are friends first, and they honor that friendship by holding space for each other and not to fall in love, but to grow in love. I love that. So I just want to welcome you, Lindsay and Sydney, to the show.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Of course. So I want to just get straight in here. Lindsay, I have heard your story before. And the first time I heard your story, I literally had chills because I remember that there was so much of what you said and what you shared that I could really relate to. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what it was like growing up?
Okay, well, this will be my second time telling the story today, but just from a different perspective. So I grew up with my beautiful mom. My mom was a single mom at the time. And my dad he did not live with us. But if I wanted to, see him, I had to page him. We would meet at, stores. We would meet at juke joints. He would take me to work with him. He would come to my school and spend time with me. But I never had, one-on-one intimate time with him in his home. And so, but that was my normal. So I had no idea, why. That was just, our normal circumstances. And it wasn't until I was about 12 years old that I missed the bus. I knew where my dad lived. He would literally ride me in his car past his house all the time, right? But I never stepped foot in his home. And when I was 12, I missed the bus. A friend of mine, we both missed the bus. We went across the street. I said, my dad is home, because I saw his car outside. And we walked right across the street to ask my father if he could give us a ride home. And he opened the door, and it might have not been the door. I keep having visions of him opening the door or the window, but whatever. He had shaving cream all over his face. And he looked at me and he was like, Lindsay, what are you doing here? And I was like, we missed the bus. Hey, Dad, I'm excited. This is the first time, but I was so nervous. And I don't even know if my friend knew. I didn't tell her, this is my first time here, so I don't know what to expect. And he said, what if so-and-so would have answered the door, so-and-so being his wife? And I just thought, okay, she'll answer the door, whatever. I was on his insurance card, so I figured she knew my name. I never met her. And he said, don't ever come back here again. I'll call you, and slam the door in my face. And that was just a moment of shock for me. I didn't really know how to take it. I mean, I was like a daddy's girl for the most part because, our relationship, to me, that distance was normal, right? So I never experienced that level of rejection. And I remember my friend Dominique, she collected me and was like, let's go, Lindsay. And we walked like an hour or so home. And the entire time I was just remember having this tear stuck in my chest, like, don't cry, do not cry, Lindsay, do not cry. So as soon as we got home, my mom was still at work at the time. I remember I literally just fell like on the floor and just started bawling. And when my mom got home, I told her the story. She was angry, but the first thing she said to me was, your father lied to me, and proceeded to tell me about how, he lied. She thought that she would be the one to fall in love and get married to this man, not knowing that, he was already in another relationship. And when I heard that news at 12 years old, I'm old enough and mature enough and smart enough to kind of try to figure out what it means to be a child out of wedlock and what the labels that society places on us young women and children who are out of wedlock. And I started to see these things called an abomination, an illegitimate child. And, when you are labeled an illegitimate child, you are literally, you don't have any authority on earth. And when you start to believe that about yourself, I don't have any authority, I'm unworthy, I'm an abomination, why am I here? You start to internalize all of those things that the world tells you you are, because you don't have this picture perfect life. And at 12, I began to go down this path of rejection, right? I felt rejected, so I began to reject myself. So I developed so many different habits of people pleasing and codependency and unworthiness and beating myself up and being hard on myself and perfectionism and work, so that you could receive some form of affirmation and validation. And it wasn't until 2017 that I had a nervous breakthrough. And a lot of people don't know that the only way God could have gotten to me was to tear down all my idols. And this happened to be one of them. He happened to be one of them. He was a safety net for me. And when this relationship started to get real rocky, that is when I felt like the rug from underneath me was pulled. And that was how God really got my attention. And I ended up having a nervous breakdown, which is what I call a nervous breakthrough. And I collapsed in the middle of the street. And the ambulance had to come and collect my body. My husband was the one that called them. And I began to go down this path of, okay, God, what will you have for me? Because I was an overachiever. I was grinding. I was always trying to figure out this path of success. But what I didn't realize is that I didn't have a vision for my life. I just knew who I did not want to be. And when you focus on who you don't want to be without understanding who you want to be, you're going to run right into that person because that's your focus. And so I became this workaholic, work. But what I really found out was that moment that I was still this 12-year-old little girl running around in a 20-something-year-old, almost 30-something-year-old body, and didn't realize that all of that working was really just me needing to be affirmed and me needing validation, when I really was crying out for my earthly father. What I needed was intimacy with my heavenly Father. And that is where God began to take me on a journey of breaking my heart open so that I would go from rejection to acceptance, accepting myself and also accepting him as my real Father. And that took me on a journey of healing, beautiful healing. And it made me a better person. And also it made our marriage better. And we've been together for 18 years, so he can tell you his perspective. But yeah, that's the story in a nutshell. So many more instances, but that's,
Yeah, honestly, just hearing you speak, there's so much that came to mind when you spoke about the first moment where you had gone to your father's house unexpectedly and he told you, don't ever come back here again. That in and of itself honestly broke my heart, because prior to that, you probably had your father up on a pedestal. You understood, the relationship that you had with him, and you accepted what it was, but not understanding that there were really these barriers that you didn't even see until the day that you did that. And so what I want to ask is, How did that moment and just the feelings that came out of that and the coping and defense mechanisms that you had to develop as a result of what that really, brought up inside of you, how did all of that affect how you viewed relationships with men?
Wow. Um, Such a great question. I had uncles, but they weren't my dad, and they weren't, they were just men that were around. But what I wanted a real relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't view men as something. A lot of women who are rejected by their fathers or have dad issues see, you can go down many different paths of maybe promiscuity. You see men as objects, you could care less, you hate men or whatever. I wanted to be in a relationship with a man. It didn't cause me to be boy crazy necessarily, but I wanted to be in a committed relationship after 12 years old. Like, I wanted that level of intimacy. And so I became very hard, very tough, very guarded. And deep down inside, I'm extremely empathetic. I am extremely soft. I'm extremely sensitive, but it made me have this real tough exterior. Like, you about to reject me, I'm gonna reject you before you reject me. Even if I like you, I'm coming for that neck. Like, that's how I felt. Like, I had to, in order to protect myself. Because when you're rejected by your father as a little girl, you feel like that's your protection gone out the window. Now I have to protect myself. And so any boy, right, or a young man that approached me, right, had to be able to break through that tough exterior and bring me back to that soft place. And if they weren't doing that, I pretty much was like, oh yeah, there ain't no getting past Lindsay, because she tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny that you said that a young man who wanted to be with you would have to like bring you back to that soft place. And the funny thing is that even as you're saying that, I bet that you were resisting it the entire way. That even though somebody was in fact, like doing all the right things and making you feel like you were safe and it was different than what you used to, you were probably still resisting it. Why? Because it's not normal for you to have that. Like, that covering and protection from a man is not something that you're used to seeing. So it wouldn't be something that you would readily be able to accept, even though that's what your deepest desire is. Yes. So I completely understand what you're saying. Sydney, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us, what are your thoughts when you hear your wife speak about like what her experience was like, and ultimately like what she expected from a man, and maybe the turmoil that she had to really face within herself to get to a place where she could accept your love and be soft and sit in that femininity to where she would allow you to cover her? What are your thoughts?
Was that a lot of those things that I didn't really have knowledge of. These are, her deepest wounds, that she's just reacting in them. I don't know where they come from. So her being, having a harder exterior in the very beginning across the different, pieces of her personality, that's just her to me. I don't know where the wounds come from, and I don't know how deep they are. I came along after the story with her father, and her showing up unexpectedly to his home. That's after. So I guess you can fast forward. That's a lot of ladies like issues today. Like once they find a good person, a good man, it's hard for them to honestly let them in. Because they have all these things, that they've reacted to over the years. I have to be this, I have to be that. I can only let them get so close before letting them in and seeing the real me. So it was just layers of her taking down those layers. And when we got together, I was 17. There was, honestly, I wasn't thinking about marriage or anything like that. But it always felt serious. I always felt like, okay, I have to be upfront and honest about, you know, who I am. And that's, you know, as I was growing and learning myself, that is also something that I had to learn because I'm also learning myself. So it was, you know, when we first met, we actually shared the same seat in Spanish class, and we had Spanish. I had it before her, and she had it after me, or vice versa.
No, it was after. I was after you. Yeah.
So she was coming in to take her seat, and
story, man.
And it was like I can't remember the exact words, but her demeanor came off hard. And my approach was like, you know, you didn't have to say it that way. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how it started. It was like a, you know, yin and yang kind of thing. I met her with equal and opposite energy.
He cracked the tough exterior. So what happened was he was in my seat in Spanish class, and you know, he was still sitting there, and I was gonna be late for class. You gotta be in your seat, because I remember that teacher, she was kind of tough. Yeah. And you had to be in your seat. So he was sitting in my seat. I said, excuse me, why are you in my seat? Can you please get out of my seat? And I don't even think I said please, right? And he just sat there, and he just looked up at me, and I was like, you gonna get up? Right. And he was like, why you gotta talk to me like that? Just like that. Wow. It threw me all the way back. I was like, hold up. You were the first one to be calm. He didn't match my energy, right? He stayed even keel and was like, why do you have to talk to me like that? And it really made me ask myself, no, but for real, Lindsay, why? Why do you have to, like, why is that the way you gotta say it? And I don't know, was that the moment? You liked it. I think you kind of liked that feistiness. I don't know.
That was it. I mean, we both have what each other needs.
Yeah.
I am the calmer one of the two, and she's the spicy one. But we need both things. Right. It just always worked, you know. Yeah. And just very thankful for it. And of all the things that we've gone through over the years, we've been able to grow and learn together and hold each other accountable over the years. So
yeah. And I think that's what that moment was. We were young. I was 16, maybe 15 or 16 when we did that. But him asking me that question, I felt like he cared enough to want to know, right? Like, why do you have to talk to me like that? And that was the first time that I felt seen, but not in an exposed like way. It was like, care enough to take this journey with me for you. Right. Because I'm really
like he had some curiosity around who you were.
Yeah, and it held me accountable to be like, there may be somebody that can walk this journey with me. You know what I mean? Because I had dreams and goals. I was still a very, you know, overachieving, that achievement, that addiction, it was still in me, very driven. And I knew I wasn't the type of chick that wanted to be with a bunch of men. That wasn't me. Like, I didn't want to have to go through kiss a lot of frogs. So he actually asked me a question that made me envision, do you want to keep doing this? At 16, at 16. Yeah.
Wow. And, you know, honestly, I feel like the determination that you had where you didn't want to have to kiss a lot of frogs, I think that probably kept you in place because, you know, even you were alluding to it a little bit, that sometimes fatherless daughters do go down the road of promiscuity or trying to find validation in relationships and whatnot, and not understanding that, you know, the relationship isn't working because there's something that needs to be healed within. And it's like, until you really get that, you continue with this cycle. And sometimes it means that you've had 5, 6, 7 relationships and you still not understanding why haven't you found your person? But because you know, there was something in you that said, you know what, I don't want to have too many people circling around my orbit. And this person came at you with the right kind of energy. Like, I just feel like the two of them together really made it so that you guys can say today that you're celebrating 18 years of being together, like there's so much there. So I want to ask you, because this really just brings me into my second question, Lindsay. Were there opportunities for you to see healthy relationships with your mom when you were growing up?
With my mom, with other men? Like,
yes.
I'm sorry, that's nervous laughter. My father broke my mom's heart. And within that heartbreak, we when we find the one, or the one that we think is the one, we feel like there's no other.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one. And when you're not, it wasn't like my mom was out here bringing a bunch of men to the house at all. My dad was it for her. That was it for her.
Yeah.
So when she made the decision to say, okay, I'm getting ready to have this child, you lied, I can't do this, because I'm not going to set that example for my daughter. That doesn't mean that the heartbreak went away. Mm-hmm. And I remember, thank God for my mother, I remember when my husband and I went through one of the hardest periods of our lives, I remember her saying, like, Lindsay, this is the ish that destroys lives. Mm-hmm. You're gonna have to decide, y'all want to be together, y'all gonna have to work that out. If y'all gonna break apart, y'all gonna break apart, but if y'all gonna be together, y'all gonna have to work it out. And when she said that to me, it made me feel like heartbreak literally destroys lives. You have two broken people, imperfect people coming into each other's lives, trying to make it work, unhealed, bringing all of their baggage. But when they don't recognize that it's the baggage that is breaking them down, which breaks the relationship down, instead, two lives and sometimes other children are involved in that. And people go down the wrong path, and some people never recover. So my mom was heartbroken by her relationship with my father, which caused her to not necessarily want to be in a relationship at all. I didn't see my mom date, but when I was 6 years old, she ended up getting married. And so I did have a stepfather. No, I'm going to say 7 years old. I did have a stepfather. And that's her story to tell. However, I won't necessarily say it was the healthiest relationship, because I didn't think that it was a very loving friendship, beautiful, like, relationship. I didn't see that. I saw an entanglement, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
An entanglement in a way it's like a relationship based out of survival, right? And I think that it was safety. My mom was like, the next thing I'm going for is security. I need somebody that's going to protect my heart. I don't have to love them. I don't have to be in love with them. It ain't got to be all that. I just want to make sure that my heart will never be broken like it was before. And so I didn't see weekly date nights. I didn't see, gifts just because. I didn't see flowers. I didn't see, let me run your bath water. I didn't see, let's sit down and discuss our dreams and our visions together. I didn't see, I didn't see friendship. I didn't see best friendship. I didn't see them vibing. I didn't see that, right? Like, I didn't. And so, and I can't say I saw it around me, right? Two people in love. There were marriages around me, but none of them were marriages that I necessarily wanted, And so I went into this relationship. I knew I wanted to be in love, and I wanted that, like, 90s R&B, like the stuff that I saw on TV, because that's all you can dream about when you're dreaming about this level of intimacy. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to really just vibe with someone, right? And I wanted to grow, and I wanted to, I had visions. So I didn't see it around me. I knew what I wanted, but there was a lot of, it was a lot of pain that I had to go and grow through to receive it, right? Like, he came into my life bringing this level of care and this level of intimacy and softness that I always desired, but I thought he was doing it out of pity. Yeah. Because remember, I'm a person who doesn't feel like I'm worthy.
Right.
I'm a person who has a root of rejection, meaning I reject myself and every good thing that God could possibly have for me. So him calling me beautiful, him, doing things for me, telling me he loves me, I thought he was doing that because he felt sorry for me, not because he actually did, right? I had to go through a process of being able to see what he saw.
So I'm glad that you said that. So let's land there for a little bit. What limiting beliefs did you actually have to let go of for the growth and prosperity of your marriage?
That I am enough. And that's still a thing that I'm working out with God and my therapist, because this is deep-seated, it's a deep root of unworthiness that we're talking that we have to like uproot, right? So God loves me. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of good things, God things, in a beautiful relationship, and that I am also a prize. I used to see him as being like the gift, and that he was with me out of pity because he felt sorry for me. But when I started to see myself as, equal in a sense of I'm bringing beauty, I have a beautiful heart, beautiful spirit. I see why you love me. I see I'm favored. Like, I see why you love me. I remember us being on the couch not too long ago, and I looked at him, I said, you really love me, don't you? And he started smiling. And he started smiling because what I saw was all of those years where I was like, you sure? And it would boggle his mind. It's like, do you really think I don't love you? Do you think I'm doing like running your bathwater and loving you? You think I'm doing this for nothing?
It's a lot to not be in love.
Right, it's a lot to just be playing with your emotions over all these years. You think that's it, and it finally landed for me because I feel I love me, right? Like I love me. God loves me. I'm lovable, right? Why wouldn't you love me? And so now I get to just fall into this level of appreciation for him loving me, but also for me, right? Like, thank you, God. Thank you for that revelation. But it took a long time. Yeah.
Too often as survivors of trauma, you morph into who you need to be to survive. The problem with this defense mechanism is that even when the time has passed and the pain of the trauma has subsided, you are still wearing your mask. Your most authentic self is tucked away far beneath the surface, and although you yearn for deep connection, very few people know the real you. With everything you've experienced, it can be hard to take off that mask and be free. And let's be honest, sometimes it's easier and safer to have it on. That's why I wrote Access Authenticity. This 75-day journal and strategic guide will guide you through over 170 deep reflective questions so that your most authentic self can stop being your secret identity and start being your truest identity. You deserve amazing relationships, but you won't experience them if nobody ever gets to see the real you. Head on over to Amazon today and get your copy of Access Authenticity Journal Plus Strategy. Now let's get back into this week's goodness.
So, Sydney, I want to ask you, did you notice that there were areas of your wife's emotional life that required extra love and care from you? And if so, like, how did you handle that?
Well, I mean, we're both growing. I didn't always respond to it in the best way. Very few people can push my buttons. She's one of them. You know what I mean? And at a time in our early 20s, it was like she used to push them joints for fun. After a while, after the layers and the walls started to come down, as she started to discover herself and the reasons behind this or that, I learned about myself. It became to be a lot easier to talk through it with words instead of actions. Communication began to be we still had a long way to go, but like, it ain't right, but we can't go back there. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I do.
we found ourselves in a spot where we're in our college apartment, and I can't remember what we were arguing about.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I can't remember what we were arguing about, but the police got called.
Mm-hmm.
And they came and knocked on the door, and they said everything okay, and we said yeah. So that was like a sobering time. I think that might have been the very beginning of like, hey, we're going to have to talk some of these things out. It can't all be worked out in anger. And we create a lot of scorched earth, so to speak, in the process. So it was trying on my ego to learn how to talk about those things in a calm way, as opposed to meeting it with the same amount of force. So I'm not gonna say it was hard to love Lindsay. It was never hard to love Lindsay. But there are some things that I did not like. And that's fair. We're both growing individuals. And we've been together for 18 years. We've seen a lot from each other. And the things that did not work, have not worked, have been, over time pushed to the wayside. And here we are today. Still not perfect, but a lot better than we were back then.
Yeah. And even as you were talking, where you were like, in the beginning, Lindsay used to push your buttons. It sounds as if she was like trying to stress test the relationship, because you said earlier that, you're not finna leave me. I'll leave you before you leave me. And a lot of fatherless daughters have that exact same mentality. They understand what feelings of rejection and abandonment are. And so in order to protect our heart, we will absolutely walk away from a thing before we ever get walked away from. It's not something that we're willing to do again. So sometimes, and I was even talking to a friend of mine. He said I needed to do an episode where I talk about the other side of relationships like this, where like, what is it like loving a woman who has had trauma, who is a survivor, and who is now experiencing for the first time a healthy relationship. And I was like, oh, you know what? Like, that's a really great perspective to really just flesh out, because a lot of it is like the patience of Job. You know what I mean? Like you really do have to go into this thing understanding that you're going to have to repeat how much you love her. You're going to have to show your actions. It can't just be words. That you're going to have to, set the tone of safety in that relationship, because that is what we as fatherless daughters truly yearn for. And so when we experience a healthy relationship for the first time, it's what you call a disconfirming experience, meaning that you are now having for the first time an experience that is the complete opposite to what you're used to or what you feel is normal. And so for us, if normal has been toxic relationships or relationships with emotionally unavailable men or codependent relationships and all of that jazz, and we're now experiencing something that is completely healthy, where the person is challenging us to be our best selves, and we have to use our words, and we have to be vulnerable, and we have to, build intimacy and all of that stuff that we're now experiencing in this healthy relationship, it's scary. It's so scary, because although, we're stepping into it, we're putting our toe in the pond, we also are at the same time waiting for the other shoe to drop, like just wondering if this relationship is going to end up just like the other one did. And so with that, I want to know, Lindsay, what was it that you had to do? Like, what was really required of you, the hard work that you had to do in order to accept that what Sydney was telling you, what he was doing, the type of relationship that he wanted to build with you was possible for you, especially since you didn't see it in your home, you didn't see it in the relationships around you. What did you have to do to accept this as your new normal?
Yeah. I think I was always like, he brought out the best in me, and he was such a safe place for me, even in high school and throughout that part of me was always there. There was always a healthy level to our relationship that was always there, that was just natural. Like I said, it was dope at first sight. We were friends. Our level of being able to just truly just talk to one another about anything and everything, and visions and dreams and goals, and like it was there, that was always there. As time progressed, of course, the layers, like he said, the layers start to come off, and the trauma, the triggers start to happen. And we both were just going into it blind. There's some issues that he also dealt with, right? So like we both, like he may not be one for many words. And so him saying that he loves me, he's the type of person, I said it, I mean it, and that's it. Don't ask me again.
Right.
He's frustrated if you continuously ask him the same question. So my trauma is pissing him off, because he's just like, yo, like, stop asking me the same question. Like, that really bothers him. And he's very strong-willed. So, you know, if I want you to do something and I'm trying to get it out of you, you can't force him to do anything. There is no control. I ain't got control. You can't control this man. Like, it's not happening. So I always laugh when people tell me, like, there ain't no way. Y'all think I may be a control freak in my own little life. This one ain't it. Like, he ain't control. He is not playing. So we would bump heads. We're both like strong-willed. We would bump heads. Like, so what happened was he proposed to me his senior year of college, and I'm like, oh my God, that makes it, even though we were together and we were, you know, best friends, and we felt like we knew each other through and through. When you say, I want to marry you, that's a whole nother layer of, okay, well, what does it mean to be a wife? And that was my real question. Like, what does it mean to be a wife? And I remember we had an apartment in our college town, and we had like this lamp that had different shelving layers on it. And there was this Bible on there, and it was dusty, because I wasn't nobody reading it. It was just there. And it was dusty. And this was after he proposed to me. And I picked it up, and I said, okay, what does it mean to be a wife? And I said, well, maybe I need to go to see a therapist. I went to a therapist. She asked me one question, I bawled, and I started journaling, and I never went back. Like, I'm not going back there. That's too much. I'm 20. Yeah. I'm like 21 at the time.
Yeah.
And then so I was like, well, let me go to church. And I started going to church. I decided to rededicate my life to Christ, and just started getting, you know, serious about my walk and my relationship with him. Like, if I'm gonna be a wife, I want to do this right. And I feel like you're the only one that knows, God. Nobody else is gonna be able to tell me this. And that's been my walk with God. And it wasn't a perfect thing. Like, I didn't just give my life to Christ and know how to do this relationship. It was, and then being in community with other believers and seeing marriages right around us, and saying, okay, well, this is how you communicate that, and having someone in our lives who is a mentor, you know, who is like our spiritual advisor, who literally is there for us to kind of counsel us through our relationship, who we absolutely adore. Having him there to kind of bounce ideas off, and not saying, well, maybe you can't go to your familiar family and your mama and daddy and all these people to kind of talk about, you know, what you're going through when you want to do this before God and you want an honorable marriage. So it was giving my life to Christ. And then fast forward, it was making a commitment to want better. My mom gave me this book by Stormy O'Martian, which is The Power of a Praying Wife. So I would just read that book through and through, and realize that when he's having issues, or I feel like I'm having issues with him, that it's better for me to actually, yes, we communicate, but it's better for me to actually pray for him in a way that when I see something, being that front line, being that watch woman over his soul, and realizing that being a wife is less about what I can do and, you know, how great I can cook, how great my sex is and all that extra stuff. And it's really about being a woman of prayer and being able to see, being a protector over his soul, and also making sure that I cover him in prayer and I submit to him, and you know what I mean? And he submits to me. So I went to therapy, and I started dealing with this work in therapy, and having conversations, like being around other wives, like, and listening to their, it's just important, right? You get to figure out what it is that you receive, but really my relationship with God, like going on this intimacy with God, having him work on me and my daddy issues, revealing that I had real daddy issues to begin with, because I was still in relationship with my dad. You know, I was there. I held his hand when he took his last breath. Love my daddy. God rest his soul. He was amazing, but he was also flawed, as we all are as humans. So, you know, therapy, but my walk with God, that's intimacy with God. Like, really praying and saying, God, I need you to show me. Holy Spirit, give me a strategy on what it means to be a wife, because I don't know. And God is still, he continues to work on me, and Holy Spirit still like, all right, Lindsay, don't say that.
Yeah.
I know you want to say everything you think, but it's not, is that fruitful? You know, there'll be times when you see a mistake, you know what I mean? Or you see like, oh my God, I wish you would do this differently. It's like, is it really fruitful for you to call and tell him what he did wrong again, one more time? Like, how about you say, oh no, I didn't want that. I just wanted to compliment you on how an amazing man you are. I love you so much. That thing, like, that's the working. It's a working out. It's not, I'm not perfect, like, at all by any stretch of the imagination, but Holy Spirit literally has to walk me day by day to show me the strategy on how to be a great wife, and to pray to be what he needs, not what he wants. Because we want what we want, but sometimes what we want is not what we need. So I want to make sure that I'm what he needs. So God, make me what he needs in this season, and seasons change. It's a constant relationship with God. And I think if you don't have that, you're not gonna do relationships successfully, you know, at all. I don't see how you do it.
Yeah, honestly, I agree. I agree 100% with everything you said, because I feel like just what you described, honestly, is what it looks like to tangibly see the fact that a wife is a husband's favor. And, you know, like, yes, your husband is absolutely supposed to be your covering, but you're supposed to also cover your husband as well. You know, like understanding when silence is necessary, where, you know, you don't have to say anything at all, where, you know, sometimes you just need to be that comfort or whatever it is. And you know, I feel like you really hit the nail on the head, where you're asking God constantly, who do I need to be in this season? Yes. Because especially when we know that seasons change, where he's going through something different, and what was required before is not going to work now. So you are absolutely right. And I love that, you know, you're constantly asking God and constantly looking for the Holy Spirit's leading in that, because you're right. Like, that coupled with community is all that you need to be able to walk this life and continue walking this life. So I love that you said that. I think really that's great advice for anyone. And so I want to ask you, Sydney, I know we've spoken a lot about, you know, your wife's experience with her dad and what it brought up in her and some of the things that she had to work through. Do you think that hearing her story and understanding how it has affected her has made you want to parent your son differently?
Oh. Yeah, it's like you said, I have a lot of my own things going into it as well, and it's really a blending of two lives together, trying to spontaneously be something we've never seen before, and create a new thing that doesn't see anything like we saw. being a husband and a father, there's a lot of weight to that. You got generations on your back. You know what I mean? What I do now in this life the seeds will come up in future generations. So the things and the traumas that are in both of our lives, we try to work those out the best we can each and every day, all the while allowing Sonny to be who he is, nurturing his own individuality. It's a trial and error thing. We're not perfect people. We're not perfect parents. But the aim is there, you know, trying to get him to, first of all, love God, love people, being honest. Those things are the bedrock of the Perry household. And it doesn't always come with words. He sees us, you know, doing these things, and we just pray that a lot of those things stick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So
I think that's good, babe.
So Lindsay, when you see your husband lovingly caring for Sonny, what feelings come up for you?
Oh man, I see God's redemption, and restoration. That's why I want to have I'm starting to feel like I want a girl.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I want to see Daddy's little girl in that way. You know, I know how I feel about my Heavenly Father, but watching him parent our son and be so patient and so beautiful and so stern, right? And watching how my son just melts at Daddy's every word and and listens to him, and it's something that it's like I he's a boy, so it's different, right? It's like son and son, and I know this does wonders for him with the things that he's dealt with in his life pertaining to his own relationship with his father. But seeing it and knowing that, you know, where you come from, it has nothing to do with where you're going in that way, right? We have to revisit our past wounds so that we can correct, right? And go on the right path. But where you've been doesn't necessarily have to mean that's how you live out your life. That's how you parent. And so it's almost like this has been something bubbling on the inside of him, this love he's been waiting to give, waiting to love a son, waiting to love his child in this way. And it's also being from a mother who was a strong Black woman who had to do everything for me. I've had to learn how to rest in that femininity as a wife and a mother.
Yeah.
I don't have like seeing like having to give him the bath and having to do all the things with him. I have someone that I get to share parenting with, and knowing that, you know, in society, some roles are the woman is the one that basically does all the things for the kid, does their hair, puts them to bed, all of that. And I have someone that I get to share this with, and he lovingly does it. I don't always have to be the one to read him a book at night. Daddy does that. I'm not always the one to give Sonny a bath. Daddy does that. I'm not always the one to do his hair. He doesn't like me touching his hair. Daddy can do that too. Watching him be a full-time parent, that there's no gender roles in how we parent our son. I know I'm mommy, and there's this loving and soft nurture that I give. I don't even have to I can, you know, I'm a mama now. You're gonna listen to me,
right?
But watching him take, like, you're not gonna talk to your mama like that. You're not gonna disrespect your mama like that. Like showing him how to treat a woman. And our son is 3. I absolutely I love it. I love it. I'm so grateful to God that He has allowed for me to see this. It may not have been, you know, what I wanted it to be, but we sit at the dinner table and we're having dinner with our son, And we take him out to dinner and he's asking, you like your sushi? Mommy got sushi, daddy got sushi. And we even told him, I said, Sonny, you have something that mommy and daddy did not have growing up. And this is so beautiful. We love doing this with you. We tell him things like that, you know? And one day, you know, we'll share the story, but I'm so grateful. God is a redeemer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to ask you, Sydney, what advice would you give a man who has either just married or is about to marry a woman who shares the same experiences that your wife has had?
I am going to give the advice that I wish somebody would have gave me. Have a relationship with God. Hurt people, you know what I mean? Those wounds are there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, it's the end of everything. It's those things working themselves out. You know, they don't always, those scars don't actually manifest themselves in healthy ways, you know what I mean? So going to God and asking God for patience and guidance and how to love your wife and pray for your wife through those things. It's that will be the number one advice. To communication. It sounds cliche. It sounds cliche to say that it's cliche, but it's the truth. This is my better half, or half of me, however you want to say it. I am not the best me without Lindsay being in the full know what's going on with me. She can't help me the way I need her to help me because I can't bring myself to communicate with her.
Yeah.
So all the things that I'm not communicating to her, I am now trying to solve those issues myself. And I'm not built to solve all those questions myself. This is why I have my help me.
Right.
So being able to communicate with your wife, everything, vulnerability, truth and honesty, and that's everything. Like truth doesn't always feel good. Being vulnerable doesn't always feel good. To say exactly what's going on with you at any given time, having the courage to say that and having the trust in that person that is going to be received in a loving, non-judgmental way. That is like, that's key. And you have to communicate and trust the person that they won't take what you say and use it against you. And that's the thing that's tested with time. It grows as we grow and learn as individuals. Our relationship together, it grows. We can now unlock those doors that remain locked for so long and allow that person into it. Not being afraid that they're going to say ha ha or whatever the case is. So that's two. I don't have three. God and communication. With those two things, you can do anything. You can overcome anything.
And one of the things that, like, now we both have a therapist, like individual therapy. Well, a lot of people do couples therapy, and I don't knock couples therapy, but I feel like if I do my work and he does his work individually, then collectively we come together and we're able to work it out, right? Like whatever that is. And I think I don't think there's anything more sexy than having dinner and listening to your husband say, yeah, so my therapist, and then listening to your wife say, yeah, I had my therapy session. And it's like we get to kind of have that level of vulnerability with one another. It's so sexy to me when he tells me, yeah, I was talking to my therapist the other day. I mean, that makes me light up because, you know, it's something that, you know, especially Black men, and, you know, we're starting the conversation is expanding and people are starting to make it a normal thing now, but hasn't always been that way.
Yeah.
So doing his work and me doing my work with the wisdom that we built over time together, I mean, with our relationship with God and Christ first, and prayer and communication and vulnerability, and knowing that I'm a safe space, just like you're my safe space. I'm here for you. You can trust me. I can trust you. It's an unstoppable relationship. Like, you can't, the enemy is not coming in and breaking this.
Yeah. I get that. I feel like when we're doing the individual heart work in the relationship, it absolutely does create the safe space that this relationship needs to thrive. So Lindsay, I'm going to give you an opportunity. I know your husband shared his advice, but what's one piece of advice that you would give a fatherless daughter who is just about to enter marriage? What would you say to her?
I would say develop a strong personal relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. Develop a strong personal relationship, not religion, not this ritualistic, I go to church on Sunday, so I'm saved, but allow for that next level after salvation, that sanctification process. Allow for God to really, you know, be baptized in the Holy Ghost, like you, because that's what you need. I mean, everybody be like, yes, I'm his wife, I look good, I cook, I clean, I can, you know, I turn into I'm a freak in the sheets and all that. That's great, you know, that's also important, right? Great. However, can you pray? Can you pray though? Because at the end of the day, that's what you're gonna need. You're going to need to have a strong relationship with God, to where when you feel like you're not being heard in your relationship and those triggers, you could go to God, and God will walk you through that healing process of going to therapy. God and therapy.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I love that combination. So we are nearing the end of the interview, and at the end of the interview, every time I interview couples or individuals, I like to do something called Bernadette's Quick Five. So it's going to be 5 questions that I'm going to ask. You both are going to answer. There's no wrong answers. I just want to hear your heart on this. So I'm going to start with you, Sydney. What is your favorite thing about your wife?
Her heart. She is super duper genuine with everyone. She's loving, she's patient, she's kind, and she's giving of herself. Absolute favorite thing about her. Yeah.
Love that. Lindsay, what's your favorite thing about your hubby?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. His heart. He's super patient, super kind, super integral. I've seen him do things that he didn't have to do that he's done, right? Like clean up buildings that didn't belong to him. And I just think that he is such a man of integrity. And that's what I love the most about him.
I love that. When you think about the quality of your love, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
A1. There is no other woman for me. She is it. She has my heart, truly. And it doesn't get any better than that.
What about you, Lindsay?
I would say pure gold. Refined gold. The gold that has been tried by the fire and melted and then molded and then out, like pure gold.
Right. And has also been inspected and found worthy.
And found worthy. That part. Yes.
Love that. Love that. If there was one thing that you wouldn't want your spouse to ever forget, what would it be?
That I love her. I love her for who she is, and everything that comes with her. Unashamed and true. that's what I want to do.
What about you?
I'm gonna try. I love him. He knows that I love him. So I would have to say that I'm proud of you.
Mm.
That I'm proud of the man that you are, the man that you're becoming. I'm proud of the father that you are. I'm proud of the husband that you are, and how you would do absolutely anything and everything to make sure that we and I am cared for. And I'm proud of you.
Love that. What is one thing that you do together that has improved your connection between each other?
It goes back to our core values, freedom, allowing us to be individuals and explore life in this lifetime, and get everything out of it that she wants to get. I don't approve of being super duper restrictive, that you do this and that's what you do.
You gotta expound on that because people gonna take that the wrong way.
Well, if you want me to expound on it, you're my woman. I want you to be my woman. We're in a intimate relationship and exclusive with each other. But in terms of what you do in this lifetime, what you want to explore, the type of career that you want to have, what direction you want to go in, my job is not to restrict that, to pray that your path be made straight, and if it would be good for the glory of God, then I'll allow you to have it. Ask God to allow you to have it.
Yeah,
I like that.
love that.
Yeah. I mean, in essence, what you're saying is that, because you both have a relationship with Christ, because you both understand, the values that you share and the trajectory that you want your life to go down, you understand and you trust that neither one of you is going to do anything that's going to knock you off course. So you're free to explore who you are and wherever that may take you, because it's only going to be more interesting when you come back and share what you've learned and all of that. So yeah, I get that.
Yes.
What about you, Lindsay? What would you say?
Oh man. I agree with what he said. I would just say, like how one of the things is we don't fall in love, we grow in love and rise in love. So part of that is really allowing for him to be who he is, right? And realizing that we have a lot of similarities, a lot of commonalities, but at the same time, we may not like the very same things, right? Or there are things that, he wants to try something new and purpose, and he feels like, this is what God is calling and leading him to. So like I said, I go back to God and I say, how can I be what he needs in this season? So being able to support his dreams and not attaching, not getting complacent and stagnant, and allowing for him to change. And then as he evolves, adjusting to that, right? I feel like if we both communicate, hey, I'm changing, and I think the last week I was letting him know some things about this freedom that I was experiencing within myself, this love that I was having. And I was telling him, and he was like, okay, I said, I'm letting you know I'm changing. I'm letting you know there's something happening in me so that you can get your mind right. And he was saying he'll do the same thing for me. Like, yeah, babe, I think this is the direction that I want to go in. But we're so in tune with one another that I know you're telling me that, so I can adjust my heart and start praying. All right, God, what does this mean? So that we don't grow apart when that season comes and it's time for us to walk into it. We're not growing apart. We're there supporting one another through the process. So,
Absolutely. And it's what you said before, just like continuously asking the Lord to direct you into who you need to be in this season, so that you can be prepared for what your husband is going to need as he grows and as he evolves, and vice versa with you, Sydney, as well. So yeah, I get that. And my final question is this: what is next for you?
More prayerfully, more influence in the kingdom, bringing people to Christ in my own individual way, sharing my own experiences. I know there's an exact answer, an exact generic answer, but I've learned that God he has his own direction for you. He, by my heart, I am a healer. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But I can't control how that gift is being used. And all your gifts are used to bring people to Christ. So however that's done, I'm praying that it's more influencing the kid.
Yeah. It will be.
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to give you an opportunity to let everyone know where they can find you, Lindsay and Sydney, and we will wrap up. So
I'm Lindsay Ray Perry everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, my website, lindsayrayperry.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever it is you want to find me or whatever way you choose to work with me. What's next for me is more healing women, right? And getting them to really heal from rejection. That's what I really do on the underneath, right? On the top, it looks like getting you to become the CEO of your life and your business, but underneath the work that I do with women, most of them are wives, most of them want to be in committed relationships. I help them get past this tough exterior and love on themselves so that they can really live an abundant life. And being and doing more of this, sharing our testimony, because I don't even think we even touched the surface in this. So,
no.
And
social media, it's first name, last name, Sydney Perry. I think Sydney Perry 21 on Instagram. And that's where you can find me.
Awesome. This has been an amazing interview. I just want to thank you guys again for just, opening up your relationship a little bit to us and being so transparent in how lovingly and honestly you've answered all of the questions, and just watching you guys, looking into each other's eyes as you were talking, and, the way that Lindsay lights up when you're speaking, Sydney. I can see the love. I can see what you have worked so hard to build. And, even just the understanding of the magnitude of being the first in your relationship to have the kind of healthy relationship that you both yearned for, and modeling that for your son and for your future children, and knowing that that is going to be the example that your children have for themselves. I just want to let you guys know that I see you, and that, I can feel the love, and I really appreciate you letting us see a little bit of that today.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much, Bernadette. Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
It has definitely been a pleasure. And so we are done. This has been such a great interview, and I will see you next week.
All right.
Bye.